Just a quick note before we get started here. Sam Hurd has joined our March 4th, 2023 Not a Conference workshop date in Las Vegas. It is the day before WPBI, so if you're in Las Vegas, or you could be, and you want to hang out with myself, Sam Hurd, and Carolyn Tran, we're going to be setting up shoots for you on the strip as well as off the strip. This is all put together by bookfocal.com. Focal. And there's a link down below if you'd like to join us. It's going to be a really, really awesome day.
Here we are, Imaging USA with Sam Hurd.
Hey.
And we're in an atrium. If you're watching this on video,
Biodome.
We're in Biodome. Actual Pauly Shore is down here. I want to give people some actionable tips if you're maybe wedding number 1, wedding number 2, wedding number 3 into the industry, or if you've decided that you want to go down this wedding photography pathway and you don't really know what the next step is.
So can I do a shameless plug?
Yeah.
Fast? So I'm in the process of probably starting a new podcast with somebody who works for an app that I really love called Glass. Have you tried Glass?
I have not, but I should.
It's an app. It's basically trying to be photo first, like 100% photo first, no video, kind of like old school Instagram. One of the things I've been doing on Glass, since I've been shooting for 12 years now, is going back to my original weddings, like first year, second year, way, way back, teasing out a favorite photo where I do have like an interesting talking point and or like a lesson that I learned, and writing on Glass, because I don't think they limit their captions the way Instagram does. Basically an entire deconstruction or like blog post style of that lesson. So I've been doing that a lot on my Glass profile, which has been really fun. And Glass beautifully shows not just the images, but the EXIF data, which is, if you're a photographer, I always forget, but like, have you ever walked around a museum or whatever, and they actually maybe have the aperture, shutter, ISO of whatever photograph you're looking at? I love that. And Instagram, unless you manually add your EXIF data, it doesn't show it. And that's a huge bummer. And that's a big differentiator in Glass right now, and a key reason why I use it and feel really good exploring these old photos. And it's also, you haven't said anything in a little while, so feel free to interrupt. But I've been struggling with, having done this for so long now. So many people that know me and know my work probably haven't seen most of my work from like the first 5 years, which is some of my best and favorite work. And I've been trying to think of ways to recycle that. I hate the like sequential, and maybe this is a consequence of social media algorithms, right? You only get that organic reach for a day, and then it's just in your feed. And unless somebody is really obsessed with you, and I've done this with photographers, I find, and scroll back to the very beginning, 2,000 posts ago, they're never going to see that work unless maybe it's on your website. And so I've been trying to think of ways that like you can really, tease out your older work. And it seems like, writing about insights, especially from your earlier time, like that's when all my most valuable lessons were learned. Even if some of the photos aren't great, like the talking points are really good, I think.
No, I totally get it. And I feel like it's something that I struggle with in terms of being an educator, is that the lessons that you learn early on, you learn them, you know them. But as you progress, things become, it's almost second nature. Like I don't have to think to go to a wedding anymore. And at some point, you kind of have to start thinking about that again. And like, why did I make that choice? And having that data open is a helpful thing.
And being aware, if you are educating a photographer, of those second nature, super easy things for you, but for someone else, they're still struggling to remember, because it's hard to balance like 3 or 4 different thoughts at once when you're importing in Lightroom or bouncing your flash, and you're dealing with all the ratios between your shutter and ISO and aperture. It's like, oh yeah, I should probably make sure it's pointed in the right direction too. There's a lot to deal with. It's interesting. So like being able to, for me, this has only been something I've been doing with Glass now for maybe about a month. I don't set New Year's resolutions, and I made almost no goals ever in my entire life. I'm not a goal setter, but it has been somewhat of like a New Year habit that I've been trying to stick with, is just sitting down, finding an old photo, and then thinking about what I learned or what I could write, and having that down in text instead of just saying it out loud or thinking it. Really solidifies those like early lessons a little bit more.
Yeah, and then take all that text and put it in a book.
Okay. So
sorry if I just stole your
my idea.
That's fine.
It's okay. I've been thinking a lot. People have said something about a book for a while, but I've never seen it. who wants a photographer's? Maybe if you're
I think
somebody,
you'd be surprised.
but like somebody like Fair Warwisti, like I love his work, but his work is so interesting and playful and fine art. I hate that word, but I don't know. It's artistic enough that it doesn't really matter who's in there. You're still like drawn to it. My photos, I don't feel that way about, but maybe that's just how photographers are.
It can also
about their
be,
work.
I would say it is obviously art, but it's also would have a huge educational element to
Yeah.
it as well. So I think in that sense, it would be a very valuable thing for
I
someone
guess
to
I
pick up.
haven't seen that many, art.
And you've already done the work.
That are
You've already done the
I'm
work.
in the process. Yeah. And again, it's really nice to have like a reason to churn back through my old stuff because, yeah, it's kind of scary actually how often I'll look at a photo and completely not remember that I had made it. That's like freaking me out.
Yeah. So looking back on those first few years, how did you book your first wedding?
Oh, that was, well, we should probably start with my first photography job, which wasn't weddings. Found through Craigslist, classifieds. I was just applying mostly to, even back then, it wasn't really called tech jobs. It was just like computer science-y, network type of, like computer networking type of jobs. So I was just perusing Craigslist and came across a listing for this place called the National Press Club. They were looking for a full-time staff photographer. They had no photography program. My boss would not be a photographer. I would basically be thrown into making their photography a sellable service for clients that have press conferences there. And I'd be the only one doing it. So that is how I started professionally. They paid me nothing. I mean, they paid me something, but nothing relative to what I could have been making with my degree. It was about half as much. And I lived in a much more expensive part of the city because the press club is right in downtown. So anyway, I started working there, and a coworker of mine got engaged after about year 3 of me being there. And she trusted and liked my work and me enough. They didn't have much of a photography budget, but that's how I got my first wedding. She just really wanted me to shoot it because
That's an interesting. So I think there's a lot of power in being somebody that somebody just wants to have at their wedding. That I feel like that's a huge check mark that
and
a lot of
really,
us miss.
really tough to get across not in person. That's something I constantly struggle with. Once I get a client who has just randomly inquired through my website, once I get them on a like face-to-face meeting or Zoom call or something, everything, they get that sense of like, oh, okay. Or I get that sense from them. Like, I want to be around them at their wedding day. Hopefully it's reciprocated. But I'm not blessed with the gift of like copywriting and being able to get my personality like across in text on my website or even in like social media posts, really. And it's a gift if you have that ability. Some people, clients, they find a photographer and they're like, yeah, I want this person around me all day without even meeting them. And that's mind blowing. How did we get on this topic? Oh, yeah, my coworker. So anyway, that was my first wedding. And I started a bit younger than like the average age, especially back then. So I was right there to scoop up once I had that first wedding and started to build out a portfolio, like the word of mouth spread quite well because everybody around my age was starting to get married. And
that's a cheat code that I don't think a lot of people talk about when you're like 21, 22, 23. And
I should mention Caitlin James. I don't know if you've ever had her on the podcast. She and I were in the same graduating class at the same university. And I didn't really know her that well, but I knew she was good at photography. And she like started weddings full on, like middle of university, like her second, third year or something like that. And, it was like 5 years behind her, but
that's interesting.
She was very smart to start.
What led you to weddings? Was it?
Mostly when I was working at the press club, I had a lot to learn in terms of equipment because I bought, basically I started with my Nikon D50 and the kit lens that it came with. And then slowly, as I started to get more clients, the press club was willing to buy more equipment, and I needed to research, like, what the heck is the difference between a prime lens? Why is this 1.4 lens so much more expensive than this 2.8 or this variable aperture, whatever zoom? And because I just literally didn't know. So in researching what the heck I should buy, I came across the work of Ryan Brennheiser. So that is what drew me to not just my client asking me, but like seeing his work and realizing wedding photography, because I'd only ever been to one wedding in my life. before the first one that I photographed. And I didn't really know what the expectations were. What kind of stuff do I document? So finding his work through his lens reviews, because he shot Nikon and so did I, just hooked me big time, way early on. That was one of my earliest workshops as well, was attending his. And also really made some powerful lifelong friendships from that workshop, which is one reason, people go to my workshops or any other photographers and want to like absorb knowledge like a sponge. But one of the things that I think hopefully most people realize after the fact is like, oh, now I've got like these 3 friends where we have something in common, just following my work, right? It doesn't have to be me that they have in common, but it's like the catalyst for these friendships to form. And anyway, that's what happened to me with Ryan Brennheiser's workshop. And one of the reasons I wanted to start teaching was to enable that for other people. So that's what drew me to weddings. I don't shoot like Ryan at all. And a lot of like what he taught even at the workshop was good knowledge, but I didn't really apply. But that didn't make it like not incredibly valuable. Sometimes like learning something just to know that you don't want to do it that way can be just as valuable as learning something that you're like, oh yeah, this is what I should have always been doing.
I agree 100% with that.
Yeah.
And similarly, I guess I found Jerry Jonas's work really early on.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And he creates amazing work. I create work that is nothing like his, but I saw the things that he did that I really liked, that I could absorb, and the things that I did not want to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's just how you build if there is a way to build like your photography mindset. I think it's just bits and pieces from everyone.
But I think it's more the figuring out the things you don't want to do. And I think people don't ever think of it from that backwards perspective. A lot of people, none of my workshops, but what I've heard come away from a workshop and be like, I didn't learn anything. This was a waste of money. It's like, really? I mean, you could actually, if you really wanted to, I'm also kind of an endless optimist. Glass is always half full. You could take everything that you didn't learn or didn't like about that workshop and let it inform something somehow. I guarantee it.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So now you've shot one wedding.
Okay.
And you're looking at, how do I book more?
Yeah.
And what was that process like?
I resisted advertising for wedding clients for the longest time. Actually, it hasn't really been until more recently with COVID times that I started to put actual consistent budget towards advertising dollars. It was always been really important to me to run a super, super efficient business, like financially, gear wise. I'm the only one, Lightroom wise, everything has to be like completely thought through and worked down to its core efficiency so that I could run, get new clients and everything with as minimal effort as possible. Then when I have the bad times, which everybody will have in terms of just bad luck, you get 700 inquiries one year, but it's all for June 5th. Like, what do you do? Like that might happen, right? Everybody's going to have down years. So if you're running an ultra efficient business, there's now a lot of headroom for me to expand into doing ads or doing reviews. And I'll think back to the early days for you in a second, but something more recently that actually doesn't cost any money that has been working extremely well is leveraging Google reviews. Did you see are you still on my Patreon? Did you see this?
My
post?
wife, Lindsay, is. She's on your original tier. She's like, I can never get rid of this because it's like, I don't even know what it is, but
that's funny. It's I don't know what it is, but I don't know if she told you about it or not, but it has worked really well. And it's the idea. I've always hated personally being like a business on the internet where anybody can leave a review. I have one star review from some rando person who just called a bunch of photographers, and if they didn't answer, they left a 1-star review. I'm like, Google, get rid of this. This is awful. Like, I hate this. Anyway, I hate that. But what I thought about was flipping that relationship to my benefit and leave reviews for venues that I've shot at. So I went through about 60 blog posts, and every blog post, I'm pretty good about mentioning the venue and linking back to it just for simple SEO purposes. So I went through, teased out 4 or 5 favorite photos, and I left a Google review as the photographer reviewing the venue through photography and included a bunch of photos. And clients have found me big time through that. And venues, I only leave a review if it's 5 stars. I'm not trying to like start a war. I hated this place. This sucked. Never book them. That's not a good look. But venues interact and will like upvote you or say thank you, and you're now on their radar a bit. And I haven't had this yet, but a few patrons who have implemented this have had like their pictures put on the venue's website and tagged, and it's a really great free way to make a relationship there. Plus, the reach is insane. My Google page ranks, I think, second in map results. My Google profile for Sam Hurd Photography. And my average view, sometimes I'll get like weird bursts of stuff, but any photo that I add to my Google page, I don't know, 400 views, maybe 500 tops after a bit. But with these Google reviews, I'll easily get, I mean, I wish my phone wasn't charging right now, but like 10,000 views a day. Not on just one photo, but across all those reviews combined. It's insane. And that amount of reach, if you had to pay for that in ads or to boost a post on like social, like Instagram or something, would not be that cheap. And it's, in theory, highly targeted toward your clients, because these are wedding venues. And that's generally the first place most people are going to start researching before all their other vendors.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Cool. Have you ever heard of somebody doing that?
I've never heard of anyone doing that.
I'm always resistant to hear other photographers' education, because I don't want to lift an idea and think like, oh,
this is mine now.
This is mine. I came up with this brilliant idea, but I haven't come across anybody else doing that yet.
I haven't heard of anyone.
Yeah.
It's brilliant though.
Yes. But one thing I think I might backtrack a little. I got a little lazy toward the last like 15 or so reviews, and employed ChatGPT to do some of the review writing for me. And I think it's a little bit too reviewy. I need to go back to just like doing the work of making it in my true, genuine voice. ChatGPT was very helpful though.
Yeah,
just like
can
getting.
You just get it right it like Sam Hurd.
Yeah, I'm not that famous. I can't even say. I asked it like, oh, ChatGPT, who are the top 10 best photographers in DC? And I was not on there. So, yeah.
Well, according to it only indexes to 2021 or something.
Right.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
These are lies.
Also, you can ask it to do something and it'll be like, I'm not capable of doing this. Please. It'll say, do something else. And then if you just like rephrase it or tweak one word, it'll be like, here you go.
Here's everything you need to know.
Yeah. It's really odd. You can also pay for ChatGPT. There's actually a really great app. I can't remember the name of it, but a lot of indie app developers are making native apps to run like right on your MacBook or something, or Mac OS. And there's one that I love. I wish I could remember the name, but you do have to pay because it gives you an API key linked to your account. It's really cheap. ChatGPT is not expensive, but you can do like preset prompts where, say, you ChatGPT write a venue review about this from the perspective of a wedding photographer who shot there, and then you can save that as a prompt, and then just type in the venue name or something like that. Like a lot of these native apps are going to be very, very valuable instead of having to constantly go to the web interface, which is down half the time.
Yeah, I think for blogging, it's also going to be huge that, I don't know, you actually have remained an active blogger.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about...
We should tie that back to how I continued to propel getting more clients. Blogging in the early days was 100 times more important than it is now, but that was the main source of consistently getting new wedding clients. And my general pattern, even to this day, is to share something on Facebook, like social media or whatever, then immediately blog that same exact set of photos, or maybe like a few extra bonus ones. One or the other, but that encourages clients to share your website with friends and family, and like be checking your website every day to see if there's any other like newer posts. And that was a lot of the legwork for getting me free. I mean, there's work involved, but free new clients that found me through my blog. Also tied into blogging eventually what Ryan was doing. I was doing gear reviews for equipment that I was using my own images and insights. And that was huge. A lot of my wedding clients are wedding photographers, and they found my work through a review, originally.
Yeah, you live in an interesting ecosystem where I feel like every year you're maybe a little bit more the wedding photographer for wedding Sam was our wedding photographer, and it's it's very interesting. I don't know. I guess it does come down to just being incredible at your craft and being that person that resonates with other photographers.
But selfishly, I tend to be motivated in terms of like doing something like equipment reviews or writing really long posts about images from a decade ago, because maybe this isn't selfish. Maybe it's more healthy than I give myself credit for, but I think it really helps you, like sitting down and actually writing these thoughts out really helps me become a better photographer ultimately, because it like kind of becomes second nature background noise of why I'm pulling this lens out and what I remember in my review that I liked about this lens that I can leverage, or a weird flaw in it that I have to remember to take care of.
Yeah. And it's also interesting, looking back on all of your past work, that it was shot with gear like a Nikon D700.
Oh yeah,
and
that was my first
those
full frame.
images stand up. Like it is ridiculous.
That is
So
interesting to think about.
if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I need to get the Canon R6 Mark II, otherwise I'm not going to be a great photographer, know that everything is pretty darn good now, even going
Across the
back to like
board.
2015.
Yes. I will say, though, as I'm aging, this gray hair is getting pretty extreme. My eyesight is also getting worse and worse. And having the flip out screen where like I can still see close up without glasses, but someday you're probably going to need glasses if you do this long enough, and not having to have, being able to have like a nice larger back of screen real-time feedback, and then for your eyes, and then just general like physical comfort of shooting now is much better than it used to be. Like
You were the first one that was doing live view.
yeah, I think I was
Nikon
pretty
camera.
early on that.
And-
yeah, the D4 was the first one where it was just responsive enough to be able. You still had the manual focus, but like I made that part of my my process. Like the deliberate slowness of manually focusing, kind of informed a lot about how I set couples up and how I approach scenes, and be a little more thoughtful. Same reason a lot of people would probably shoot something like film or Leica cameras in general, is that more deliberate approach. A kind of the benefit of seeing a real-time exposure and flare and reflection effects in live view was enough for me to like struggle with the manual focus and the slightly choppy responsiveness, but it worked. Yeah. So once mirrorless came around, I was ready to fly. There was no adjustment period at all for me.
What's your percentage mix viewfinder through the EVF versus the screen?
Almost all screen.
Okay, I'm the
And it's
same. I'm
so much-
100%.
yeah.
Like I've disabled my EVF.
Nice.
So even if I go anywhere near it, it doesn't activate. I have to
Oh, okay.
go in.
I still keep it only because if I'm sometimes shooting in outdoor sunlight, I will put it up to my eye so I can really not have the glare. But I assume Sony cameras do this. They don't do in-camera cropping, as we all know. But
It's a reference
do
to
they-
another video.
yes, I can't wait for the comments on this. But does it boost the screen temporarily if you want?
Yes.
The
So
display?
there's a sunny mode setting.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
And yes, the screen is, I would consider it to be trash in bright sun on the normal mode.
yeah, okay.
And then when you go into bright and sunny, it's fine.
It's one of my favorite settings, and it's a way of thinking about the equipment that I wish they could. Whoever is like thinking in that way at these companies needs to get their thumbprint and mindset on so many other things, because shooting in mirrorless from waist height and all these other physical differences versus the old DSLR approach really change things in ways that, I don't know, could make things a lot more fun and interesting. One example, right? So I'm shooting live view, my screen's flipped out, I'm photographing you a lot of times, especially if I'm doing portraits and headshots. I'll flip my screen around so people can see themselves. And first of all, they immediately start like, oh yeah, I want to fix this, whatever. It's almost like a mirror. Second of all, they're way less photo conscious because they don't think I'm about to take an image. If a camera manufacturer could make, even if it's a crappy low-res trash double-sided screen, so that I could be taking images while people are looking at themselves, close enough to their eye line in the lens to be looking at that, would be totally game-changing for portrait photographers, studio people.
Even just running EVF and screen at the same time, if you could just like
That too,
not
to be able to just
have
look
it override.
100%. Yeah, I don't know why nobody's done that yet. But
Battery life, you got 300 shots, but
yeah,
it'll
maybe.
be a great 300 shots.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So hopefully, Sony seems to be leading the charge on I would say the most rapid innovation, maybe, and not in the lens way, but like, just iterating on their camera models. I mean, nobody can even keep up with where they're at anymore. I can't. Yeah, hopefully we start to see some real interesting, playful things. I would love to see a camera manufacturer make something just totally weird, like a camera where the buttons are on the bottom or something. Like, why not? Anyway.
All right. Well, we'll put you in touch with the Sony research and tech team.
Okay,
and
good.
they're probably here, honestly, somewhere.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So let's get back to a couple wedding photography marketing things, and then we'll wrap it up.
Cool.
What were the things that you've done, with the exception of kind of what you spoke about earlier? What are some other things you're doing for marketing, or things that you would be doing for marketing? I know that once you're kind of sustained as a wedding photographer, it becomes easier to get referrals and whatnot.
I don't know that that's necessarily true. I wish I could force for example, my Instagram following. Right when I hit the 100,000 mark, I realized I don't like this. So there was actually a venue called Ridge Farm Studios, which is also a wedding venue, but I was there for a workshop years ago. And it's an amazing place. It's an old farmhouse. It used to be a recording studio. Queen wrote and recorded tons of stuff there, like old analog studio. And I was talking to the owner. I was like, so how do you guys market? Like, is it easy because you're like this legendary recording studio to get wedding clients? He's like, no, we purposely try and fly under the radar. He's like, the magical space to be is right where you're a pro and you can handle any client that comes your way, and you've got the experience to back that up. But when people find you, they feel like they found something special and like not secretive or hidden, but like oh my God, nobody else is like using this person. We love their work. I've always wanted to like have some perpetual. First of all, I want to always be able to say, oh, I've been doing this about 8 years, even like 30 years from now, because that's like the magical mark in my brain where things were like really, the momentum was gradually comfortable and perfect as far as inquiries and everything. And then I want like, I don't know, 60,000 followers. And then just, it kind of fluctuates plus or minus 1,000 forever. So, because once you reach that 100,000 threshold, people do start to perceive you as like, well, I'm not going to send Sam that referral. I'm sure he's already booked. Or I'm sure he's way too expensive. Like, I would love to work with him. I'm not that expensive, especially in my market. I'm like middle high, mostly because I want wealthy clients or people whose like parents are paying, and I want people who are normal, like teachers or whatever, where like I'm by far the most expensive vendor at their wedding. Like I want right in that middle ground. So I'm trying to think of like active ways to, I wish you could tell Instagram, like purge, I don't know, every follower that hasn't looked at my stuff in a year. Plus, I think that would also be like healthy to do. I don't want that person following me if they're not able or interested in seeing my stuff for a year or more. Anyway, big thing though is figuring out little weird tricks as platforms that you use grow and expand. SEO changes, you need to adapt and change. Algorithms change. So I'll post generally a single image now, and it gets abysmal, awful reach. But every time I post a 10-image carousel, it does totally great. I never need to like boost it. The engagement's excellent. And that's because if you have a secondary account and you look at your own carousel post from like your main account, you'll notice the first time the feed comes, it'll show you the first image. And then if you relog into that account, it'll start from the second or third image. So that same post is giving you a lot more. Yeah, exactly. It's like A/B testing for exactly that, which is weird. That didn't used to be a thing. And, posting consistently, consistent time of days, consistent types of captioning, all that. When you find what works really well for you, I say stick with that, because when an algorithm change occurs, you're going to be aware of it. You're not just going to be left to wonder, is my work getting worse? Like, I think a lot of photographers had this like crisis of, man, I suck at photography. I used to get 10,000 likes. I never got that, but I know people that did, like, used to grow by thousands of followers every day. And then the more they shoot, no, their work is still incredible and getting better, but nobody's engaging with it. So for them, the feeling is like negativity, bad. And that sucks. And I wish social media companies at least had some transparency about what tweaks they were doing so that you could know, oh, okay, they're going to really penalize me for not having a carousel post. That's why it's not doing well. I still love this photo by itself, whatever.
It's a hard mental game.
Yeah.
I think everyone struggles with it.
And it's silly. It's unnecessary. Yeah. It doesn't have to be this way. That's what's really frustrating. That's another reason I really love Glass. They don't pay me anything, by the way. Nothing. And they do cost money. But anyway, it's been a weird experience. There is no feed. So it's all organic reach. And when I post something on there, it may not get a like for like an hour. And it's so odd. I keep notifications on Glass. It's one of the few apps. I'm very selfish with notifications. Very, very locked down phone. Nothing from Instagram, nothing. But Glass, I keep on. And it's funny to see these waves of engagement as just randomness collects people on the app at the same time. Where I was like, oh, 5 people liked my post in the last 5 minutes. Nobody did 5 hours before that. That's so weird. And it's fun. It's different than the whole, you got 24 hours or this thing is probably going to be archived because it looks bad when a photo has 200 likes versus 2,000 on your Instagram feed. That whole game is just a joke. And I hate that you have to even think about it. Glass, it's not like that at all. So the other thing, shameless plug for Glass. They are taking the old school kind of Flickr model, which I'm very excited about, of being able to do things like searching the entire platform by lens or camera brand.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So
that's going to create an incredible database.
Oh my God. And it was insanely hard work for them because apparently camera manufacturers are very inconsistent, even within their own lineup of where and how they store EXIF data. So they had to, for everything on there, go through and manually, program how to rip that data out and present it so it was searchable throughout the entire system. And I had forgotten how useful that is. If you can't find a gear reviewer you like or trust, and now I don't trust anybody who writes reviews because
everyone's biased.
Yeah, everyone's biased, or they got the thing for free.
They don't want to piss off the company.
They're never going to piss off the company. Yes, but being able to just say, you know what, I'm really interested in that Nikon. What's the newest Nikon? I don't even know.
I don't know anymore.
Z's, 2s.
They announced a new 85 1.2.
Oh, yeah. So
I
want to see a bunch of different photographers from a bunch of different skill levels that photograph a ton of different genres.
That's way more
Show
valuable.
me everything that lens has super valuable.
Yeah, because when you're watching a review on YouTube, it's all that one photographer. It's all similar preset. It's all their eye, and now all of a sudden you can just have thousands of images.
Yep. And Glass is made by photographers. This is clearly, I don't think Zuckerberg is much of a photographer himself. I could be wrong. Maybe he's
Tom
like MySpace Tom. Yes, that man is my hero. I don't know.
Oh. All right, I think we're gonna wrap it up.
Okay, cool.
Thanks so much for being here. Where can people find you on the internet?
Instagram is I am the Sam. It's also my Glass profile, and it's just samhurdphotography.com, or perhaps a Google review near you. Thanks.
That was the best tip. If you didn't catch that tip, rewind. I'll mark it because that's gonna transform a lot of people's businesses.
Awesome, and it's free, and it literally works.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
And if you become a Google guide, I don't know if you've received your free socks yet. Have they sent you socks?
No.
They send you socks when you hit a certain...
I'm like local level 5 or something.
Okay, you're going to get socks soon. You get invited to stuff in San Francisco. It's like, it's...
All right.
Yeah, it's a thing.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Look forward to those free socks.
Well, I should wrap up. One reason I started paying closer attention is because Google started to auto email me, like when I did leave a random restaurant review somewhere, like, oh, your review helped like 50 people. And seeing them purposely uptick, like they didn't used to send me emails about anything on Google reviews.
Hey, do this more, please.
Yeah, do this more. That's a pretty interesting signal that, they're going to lean in. And they've been consolidating a lot of their travel. Like Google used to have an amazing travel app. It was standalone. It would scrape your inbox for all your flight and reservation stuff. It was great, but they totally did away with it and kind of collapsed it into Google Maps. And everything's just kind of going to Google Maps as far as reviews and profile. So I think Google's going to keep pushing that pretty hard.
Well, you want to get ahead of the trend?
For as long as possible. Yeah, stay ahead of the trend.
And don't forget, if you're interested, Las Vegas, March 4th, 2023. Come hang out with Sam, myself, Carolyn Tran for the bookfocal.com, not a conference, in Las Vegas. One day before WPPI, and maybe the most exciting part of the entire day, as always, a focal pizza party to wrap it up. Hope to see you there.